What's going on, guys? Avery 13 here. Doing things a little bit different today. I'm down here in Baton Rouge. I had some shoot some gators on my way down here to Baton Rouge. No, I'm just kidding, guys. That is kind of close to a Cajun accent, though. If you've never heard one, go YouTube it and check it out. Those guys have like their own language and a very, very heavy accent. But no, I'm on a work trip right now. Just got in the hotel room not too long ago, and on the way down, was thinking about kind of one of the last videos that I watched, and some statements that I made in a previous video of mine, and it got me to thinking that maybe a good idea for this video would be to talk about kind of my journey as a knife collector, in the hobby, and to kind of let you know where I'm at now, where my thoughts are on it now. Real quick about me, grew up in the South. Like I said, I'm in Baton Rouge now, but I've grown up in Louisiana. In my whole life, I've lived in Louisiana, kind of a rural area. And so, look, I'm as a kid, I carried a pocket knife with me to school. Times have changed. You can't do that no more. But yeah, little old, 7, 8-year-old me, I had a pocket knife in my pocket at school. And so they've always been, part of my life. And, never really got serious about it until about a year ago. This is 2022 right now. It was about December of 21 I got real serious about it. But before I get to that, I want to back up to about 2008 or 9 was kind of when I made my first big knife purchase. And oh boy, that was an expensive knife for me. It was a Benchmade Griptilian, and I think I paid like $88 for it. And listen, that was an expensive knife. I didn't even want to use it. Like, oh, this is too nice of a knife for me to use. And shortly around that, not too far after that, I ended up getting the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, and that one I think was a little bit more, 110, 115, 120. I don't remember, but it was more expensive than the Griptilian. So that became my expensive knife and turned into my safe queen. And so I started using the Griptilian, and those two knives, the Paramilitary 2, that one was actually S30 and I think the Benchmade Griptilian, it was a full size and 154 cm. I had those knives and pretty much exclusively used those for the next 13 years. And kind of when I got really kicked off in the collecting knives and everything was around Christmas time of 21. Let me back up to Christmas time of 2020. I had bought we do a Dirty Santa. We do a Dirty Santa at my wife's in-laws house, or my wife's family's house, my in-laws. And I had brought like a little pre-packaged like Kershaw knife set, and that was my Dirty Santa gift. And so it went over real well with a lot of the guys there. They all kind of was after that gift. And so I thought Christmas 2021, the next year, I was going to get another knife. And so I started researching what are some good knives that are, at a good budget. And I found at the time, really Civivi was the first one that I run across, and in particular the Elementum. Now, everybody had talked ad nauseum about the Elementum, and I always like to be a little different. I don't like to have the same thing that everybody else has. So I started doing some research. I didn't get a Elementum. I got a Civivi Riffle. And the Riffle was a very pleasant surprise, actually. I think I paid like $50 for it. I can't remember the blades. Oh, it was one or 14 C28N, right? Very good steel. But man, it just blew the Griptilian and the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 out of the water in terms of how fidgety it was, and it still felt really high quality. I was very impressed with it, and that led me to start looking at a lot of other of the Chinese brands, Kaiser. Was a concept, and I really kind of started diving off into, down the rabbit hole, so to say, on a lot of these knives. And Christmas time, they were running sales, and I got several full titanium Kaisers, and I had a whole bunch of them, and finally I kind of had the revelation that I've kind of spent a bunch of money. And by the time you get 3 or 4 $100 knives, you could have bought one knife that was $400, right? You could. I'm looking at 3 or 4 knives, thinking, man, I could have had a Chris Reeve. Now, that was always a Grail knife of mine, and so I started moving pieces of my collection off, right? And I did finally start getting into, some knives like that. I got a Chris Reeve Small & Cozy, very nice knife. In fact, that's one of the first knife videos that I did, was me reviewing that knife, and it was kind of my first experiences with that knife, and was very impressed by it. And then I started to look at things through a different lens, so to say. I started seeing all these people in some of the blade groups that would post their photos, right? And they would have, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 Kershaw knives and 10 or 15 Civivis. And I'm like, man, you've spent all this money on these knives, and yeah, they're nice knives, right? Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, there's also not much special about them, right? They're mass produced. They're made in China. Some people, don't care. For some people, that's a big no-no. It's USA only. I'm kind of, I'll get into that in a minute, but I'm kind of on the fence on that a little bit. But, I started to look at things, and I'm like, I can have, you can spend that sort of money and get nicer knives. You're going to have fewer, but you can have nicer knives. And a lot of those guys are also the world's worst about kind of throwing shade at people. Why you got to spend $500? That's so stupid. Well, is it though? When you've spent, is it? It's not really. In a lot of ways, I could make the argument that it's a better financial decision to buy the more expensive knife. And the reason I say that is, you could take something like this McNeese Mac 2. This is my most recent acquisition. Okay, I got this literally like 3 days ago, just did a video on it. This was right at $500, right? But I will argue all day long that this is a better financial decision than buying 5 cheap knives, 5 $100 knives, because those are really, there's not nothing special about them. There's really not. They're mass produced. Yeah, sure, they'll cut. They'll serve that function. And if you're only going to have one knife and you don't care about collecting, sure, okay, that one knife for $100 is fine. When it breaks, get you another one, right? But if you're going to be a collector, or somebody who that you're going to have more than one, then this is a better financial decision all day long, because, okay, yeah, it was $500. I could sell this right now and get all of my money back, or 95% of my money back if I wanted to, because 1, it's USA made, 2, it's high demand, 3, that there's not very, it is kind of special. It is special. They're not just mass produced. These are small batch run knives, and so, like I said, it's, in a lot of ways, this is a better financial decision than somebody who buys 5 or 6 knives that are $70, $80 a piece. This is a better financial decision. No, this is not, I'm not trying to give financial advice. I'm just saying, for those guys who like to throw shade at people for buying knives like this, it kind of doesn't make any sense. It has, look, I'm like, I don't, are you really thinking about what you're saying? Because it kind of doesn't really add up, But, so, that's where I'm at now. Now, I was talking about Chinese knives and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with them, because there are some, especially, this is made by Riot. This is a Chavez Street. There's some Chinese brands that are just, I don't know if that's focusing there. There are some Chinese brands that are just very, they're doing things very nice, right? They're doing things very well. And in a lot of ways, I consider brands, especially like Riot and all the knives that are made by Riot, I really consider them to almost be a good gateway into the higher end American knives, like the McNeese, like a Hinderer, Chris Reeve, because what they're doing here is they're putting together a product that's just as, I'm gonna say this, it's just as good and sometimes could be better than some of the American made stuff, but they're coming in $300. This Chavez brand new, I think was like $315, $330. You can find it on the secondary for maybe $250. So if you've ever wanted, to know what a good, nice, higher end American made knife feels like, look at some of the stuff like this. This is, you're gonna get a good idea of what that $500 or $600 knife feels like, but you're only spending $250, $300. And so like I said, some people will get into the old China, I'm not doing that, and other people don't care. I'm kind of in the middle, right? Like, I don't like when a Chinese company copies or undercuts an American company, because a lot of times what they're doing is the American companies, they're innovating, right? But they're also doing things in a way that is better ethically. They're paying good wages to people. Maybe they have health insurance. I don't know what's going on in China, especially with some of the cheaper models, right? Now, I'm not saying that to say, I don't know anything about them, but I am saying there are some merits to the, only USA argument, but from a quality and a value standpoint, especially something like Riot, or R8, however you say it, I think it's Riot, you're getting very excellent craftsmanship at an astounding value that I really don't think the American companies can compete with, obviously for reasons like going back to the ethical reasons I talked about. And in a way, though, that's good for the American market too, because if you know what that American made knife is going to feel like, now all of a sudden you're starting to understand why people are willing to pay, this kind of money for a Hinder or for a McNeese. You're starting to understand that, because they are worth what you pay for them. And then going back to, like I said, they're special, they're going to retain some of their value. And so as a collector, that's kind of where I've started and kind of where I'm at, kind of my journey, where I'm at now. And it's interesting because there's been some knives dropped lately that are, Chinese made knives. There's nothing wrong with them. But they've caught my eye. I'm like, man, that's a good looking knife. But I've been hesitant to pull the trigger on them because I know that I've already been down that road once. I've been there once where I've had a bunch of these knives that at the end of the day, there's not much special about them. Yeah, they look nice. And let me tell you, the market and that $100 to $150, I'll just say $200 and down. Those guys and those companies, they are very good at throwing together some designs that really catch your eye, because I've had this realization, and even on some of them, I'm like, man, those are awesome looking. I would love to have that, but I know the moment I do that, there you go. You're starting back down that pathway again, starting back down that, that quantity instead of quality. Well, I want to be on the other side. I want quality and not as much quantity, and so that's kind of where, like I said, that's where I'm at as a collector. It's kind of how my journey has been so far. Just thought it'd be an interesting perspective maybe for some of you people who are either just starting out, or maybe you're at the same point, maybe you've had the same realization as I've had. And so it's something I don't see a lot of people talk about, but I think a lot of us have had, especially I think the guys who are to this point, right? I think a lot of us have maybe had that same realization, and maybe we've just had it internally or haven't, voiced our opinions about it as much, and so, just wanted to share my thoughts on it, and kind of my perspective and how my path in this hobby has developed. This was all kind of I had this realization kind of internally. I already started moving off some of my collection several months ago in order to acquire some more expensive pieces. But my buddy Dan over at the pointy end, he had made a video a while back and was talking about it again. I said, it got me to think, like, that's so true. It's so true. I had that realization, but I didn't talk about it. And of course, he put that in his video, and then I kind of mentioned it a little bit in the video where I was talking about this McNeese. But I kind of felt like it deserved its own really standalone video. And so that's what this is. Like I said, guys, doing things a little different. I might knock out some tabletop style reviews here while I'm in the hotel. But yeah, guys, any questions, comments, concerns, geez, I don't know, questions or comments or any feedback you've got, I welcome hearing it. If you could like and subscribe, that would be great. I'm probably, when I get close to about 250, maybe 300 subscribers, I'm probably going to do a giveaway. So, if you've seen some of my content and you like it, consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to me. Guys, that's it. Take care.